I get it. We all want to be millionaires, and I support that. I think everyone should work hard, should build something, create a product, put something out there in the world, and use their talents to be profitable. Here's the thing though, that compressor control module takes 30 seconds to remove. You're not fooling anyone, you're not being creative, you're not doing anything great for the world, you're just ripping people off. Welcome to Dirt Sweat Gears and the endless chasm of endless construction. We are here with my 1989 Honda Prelude four-wheel steering. And in the last video that we worked on this thing, we diagnosed the AC system. Now there's a lot of myths and misinformation around air conditioning, and the intent of that video was to show you that in order to diagnose your Prelude, it's actually quite easy. In fact, the factory gives you the steps. So if you have a problem with your air conditioning system, the first thing you want to do is go to the factory service manual and follow the diagnostic steps, because that will lead you to the actual cause of the problem. Now in this case, the actual cause of the problem was something that I predicted. The compressor went bad. More specifically, the thermal protector on the compressor went bad, because the actual compressor itself would still spin. Everything was fine. It was completely reusable, except for that thermal protector, which tested out of the ohm spec. In this video, we're going to start tearing apart the system so that we can do a full rebuild with a flush, with a new evaporator core, new expansion valve, and a rebuild of our compressor. Because my project car was so successful, I want this car to have as an effective AC system as I built on my other car. Now I have the camera strategically placed because I've already done a whole lot of work. So when we get into the actual work on this car, you're going to see things configured very, very differently in the garage and in the workbench, toolbox area. So, and that is because this has been a long process. I took my time, I wanted to do it right, and that meant, running into blockers and deliberating on things, talking to experts, and trying to resolve it. All the while, major life events have been happening, as I'm sure you're aware if you are a subscriber to this channel. So, with all the further ado in the world, let's go back in time, get to work on this, and then we're going to catch up at our current state with only a couple of days left to get this car back together for a meet at the Peterson Automotive Museum. As I mentioned, at one point this held pressure, and it held pressure for a good long time, but in the last year it has really gone down to nothing. So I have taken out the Schrader valves. Again, nothing came out of the system, so it's dry now, even though it very much was not last year. So I'm thinking one of the seals has gone bad, and I want to find out what it was. Maybe it was a Schrader valve that I just took out. So there's no Schrader valves in here. We're going to go ahead and put our conversion fittings on so that we can test with our manifold gauge set. And we're going to find out what is going on with this thing mechanically now that we know what is going on with this thing electrically. And then once we finish our diagnostics, we're going to take the compressor down to the shop to have Angie and Sally rebuild it. And hopefully by the end of this video, this car will be as cool as my other car. First thing we want to do is do a pressure check and test the pressure switch. So we've got our air compressor hooked up to our manifold gauge set. Now, technically, you're supposed to use nitrogen. But considering this whole system is about to spend a week being cleaned out and open to the atmosphere, it's not going to do any harm to pressurize it with atmosphere for a couple of minutes. We're not running the car. So first thing, we're going to do a continuity check on our pressure switch. Pressure switch is good. That's good news. And I don't hear any hissing. Is the needle losing pressure? I mean, not really. So if we do have a leak, it could be at the compressor. And since the compressor is not turning, that seal isn't being disturbed. It also could have been one of the Schrader valves that I just took out. That is entirely possible that just the act of pressing the Schrader valve to see if I had pressure, broke the seal of that Schrader valve, and it had been leaking ever since. I think all we have to do is exactly what we did in the other car, which is tear everything down, clean it out, flush the system with our solvent, and reassemble it, put our rebuilt compressor in, and we'll be good to go. So this car has 303,000 miles, so I am fully expecting to see much worse than we saw with our low mileage car. We're going to start with the drain tube because the drain tube would actually not disconnect from the box. It actually just pulled out from the firewall. So let's pull that. Oh. Okay. Oh. Something smells. I guess let's keep taking this apart. Separate. Oh. That's gross. Oh my God. Oh my God. The blower is on this side of this evaporator core, so that means my blower's probably got a bunch of crap in it too. I should drop that out while we're in here. There's going to be some while you're in there's for this car for sure. Wow. Thankfully, we are throwing this whole thing out because I've got a brand new one right there. Not the whole thing. We got to rescue this tube and connect it to the new expansion valve. This is our new evaporator. We're going to go ahead and use it because the old one is really, really gross. We're not going to throw it out just yet because first rule is never throw anything out until the project is completely over. So we are definitely keeping this around. And one of the reasons we're doing that right now is because I need to know exactly what O-ring to use here. And in order to do that, I'm going to check the old one. Wow. Okay, so this is the O-ring that we need to match up. Okay. Get that on. It's just boom down here. So we need to recover the little clip that holds the expansion valve onto this pipe. So that's out, and there we go. We got what we came here for. There we go. New expansion valve is on. We got to tape it up with our enormous roll of tape. Where did that go? And then on the other evaporator core, it's got some of that foam just like this around here. We're going to use some of the black shit because we have 50 miles of it. Okay, now we want to put this thing back in. This was pulled off of the old evaporator core. Okay. Now we should be able to reassemble this box. Well, actually, no, we can't reassemble this box. We need to flush out this little tube, then we can reassemble this box. Which means we're going to reassemble this box later. We need to continue tearing apart the existing system, and then we will do a flush, and that's when we'll clean out this tube. So I'm really glad that I did the show and tell on the other car, because my car is a little bit different. One of the main reasons is because of these ridiculous fans. So what else do we have here? First of all, we've got a lot of cleanup to do, just like the other car, but way worse, because I actually drove my car in the past 20 years, as opposed to having it sit and do nothing. We got the same situation over here. What's crazy is that I steam cleaned this engine not long ago, and it still looks like this. Yeah, that's going to cost me 5 concourse points. 10 concourse points. Other things like I had to remove the heat shield in order to make enough room to pull up the fan, because my fan is aftermarket and it is much more difficult to work with. So really glad that I just went and did it instead of trying to show you how, because you don't have this setup, I'm willing to bet. Over here we've got, these are actually the relays for the fans. So that's had to be moved out of the way. We've got the same connection over there. I've removed it from the firewall, obviously. And then we've got these connections here and the dreaded dryer. Not looking forward to that. You know, I told you all about a guy that worked on this AC system in 2006? Yeah, f*** that guy. Dude, seriously, I definitely made it worse just now, but it was already creased at that point. That is directly a part of the condenser. So I'm going to have to pull the condenser and take it down to the shop and see if Angie will rebuild it for me, because that's rough. That's going to be expensive. So I started to clean up the engine compartment around the compressor. And, well, normally I would have this thing dry ice blasted. But considering that machine costs $40,000, and I don't have a staff of employees that kiss my ass and do everything I say, because I'm not a YouTube millionaire from sponsors that make me a millionaire and also give me free shit. And even if I were a millionaire, I would never try to normalize that kind of wealth, because I spent most of my life struggling, and I know what it feels like when someone does try to normalize that kind of wealth. We are doing this the old-fashioned way with carb cleaner. And just look at the mess. You see, this is what happens when you daily drive your car for 25 years. This builds up. So I am cleaning all of that out. Of course, I still have a long way to go. You see the bracket still has a lot of stuff caked on it. And I'm going to take a few more passes at that subframe. And I haven't yet started up front. But as you can see, I have made some great progress. I don't think I want to get too perfect, because I live in the dirt. This is where I live. This is my driveway. This is unavoidable. Dirt is unavoidable. So I don't think I want to get too crazy cleaning my car's engine bay, because the second I pull out of my garage, it's just going to look like shit again. That said, once we get to cleaning out our lines with the flush solvent, it's going to get even cleaner. So this is really great progress. I'm really looking forward to what this car looks like when I'm done with it. Now that I've got the spots in the engine compartment clean enough, it's time to start flushing the AC lines. Since I already have to take my condenser out to the shop along with the compressor, I'm not going to worry about that right now. And since the evaporator core is brand new, we're just going to fill that up with oil when it's time. So we got to clean out that pipe, and then we have to clean out all of the lines, and then we're done cleaning. We're actually probably going to use a lot less cleaner than we used on the other car. I'm going to start with this one, and we're just going to do it real quick, because I have a new air tool that I want to show you. I'm hoping it'll perform better than the tire filler I was using last time. So we're going to go ahead and flush this both directions. So I'm probably only going to be able to use this once, because it's a cheap piece of crap from Amazon. But it has this little rubber tip, which is going to make it a lot easier to fit onto the pipes, because it doesn't need to be a specific size. And then blow out the flush that is inside of it. We pulled off the fan box, and it's not that bad. There's a few little sticks and leaves to pull out of there. We'll clean that up before we put it back together, of course. Let's go take a look inside the car. Before we go into the car, I just want to prepare you for what you're about to see. In about 2007, I had to do a little welding project on this car. You see, at one time, I had a very low suspension. It was Tokiko Blue shocks with H&R springs. I had the strut bars, and I think I was starting to put sway bars on around that time as well. Now, daily driving in Los Angeles with that suspension was really, really, really hard on the car, to the point where the car started to separate at the seams. So we had to weld it back together. And I had a friend who had been learning how to weld. He just got a welder, and he went to work trying to help me put my car back together. And, well, we almost lost the car, because we kind of set the car on fire a little bit. Just a little bit. So we've got a little work to do while we're in here. First, you'll notice that there's some leaves up here. I got to take the cowl off, take that little grill off, and clean that out. And then we got to deal with this burn damage somehow. So I'm going to want to cut a little bit more of this back so that I can expose all of the corroded brake line. And then I'll just run some sandpaper over that and we'll squirt it with some primer. And I think once we do that, I can put this back together with the peace of mind knowing that my car won't get worse. I have removed the cowl, and as I suspected, there was a bunch of dirt and leaves in here. I vacuumed out that side, but I wanted to show you just how bad it was under here. It wasn't terrible, but it was definitely worth doing. The cowl, you know, here's the thing. I know I've replaced the cowl before, but I completely forgot how it goes back together. There is the black trim piece that is at the bottom of the window. That just pops off with little clips, just like this. And this little clip needs to come out of here and go back into the black trim piece. But you see it goes into these little slots at all these locations. Once you pop that out, the cowl is held on with screws. In the front of the cowl, there are these little clips. You want to go at it from underneath the entire cowl. You don't want to try to pick them out from underneath the weather stripping. What happens when you try to pick them out from underneath the weather stripping? They tear, just like this one did. And then there's a few screws here. And oh, wow. Oh, wow. Look at that. What? Okay. Well, it seems I have another thing to fix. So I cleaned this up and sprayed some rust neutralizer and encapsulator. We're going to go ahead and squirt one more coat of prime on this, and then I've got some seam sealer on order, and when it gets in, we're going to go around the edge of this thing to reseal this. On the inside of the car, I have done the same, and when I get the seam sealer, I'll do the same on the inside. You can see right where we did our weld that started the fire in this car. And since I've got the compressor out to the rebuilder along with the condenser, we really can keep taking care of all the while you're in there. That I'm missing one of these little white cap things. I had trouble identifying it, so thank you to the people who responded on the third generation Prelude enthusiast group on Facebook for... I gotta take a breath after I say that name of that group. So thank you to those people for informing me that these are called windshield wiper linkage bushings. This may come as a huge shock to you guys, but it turns out the internet was wrong. This is not the part number you need to replace these link bushings. This, while it looks promising, is a completely different size. It doesn't fit at all. You'll ruin it, you'll get pissed off, and it's just not worth it. This is the one you need. It looks very similar, but it's actually the one for GM products. Let me get you the part number real quick. 49455, not 49449. If you get the right part number, 49455 by Dorkman, it will snap right in, and these will pop right on with no problems whatsoever. So it is nice and tight, and it's just fine. This one, you know, I'm thinking about replacing it, but whatever. I'll just wait for it to break again. I also put some seam sealer on both sides. I put some on the outside and on the inside. I've got most of the tube left, which is kind of a bummer because it feels like I wasted money, but it was still worth the $8 for the tube in order to get seam sealer in those two places. So I guess it's worth it. And since we have the whole front end of the car apart anyway, I really didn't want to drain the radiator, but this really is the opportunity to build this fan shroud. I bought a sheet of metal from Home Depot over here. It's thin enough to cut, and it's also going to be rigid enough to hold the fans. I gotta admit, it's not the prettiest thing I've ever done. I don't have a lot of good metalworking tools, nor do I have a lot of good metalworking skills. So this is something that we're going to revisit at a later date, but I just wanted to get it functioning. So now that this thing is painted, let's get it on the radiator so that we can start to mount up our fans and get our weather stripping and all of this stuff together. Okay, so to solve this problem of it wiggling in the middle, it's actually much better now that I've put some insulation along the top and bottom. But we want to really secure it down, and we're just going to run it, boom, right in like that, just like a zip tie, except in a radiator. And now the fan has zero flexion whatsoever. Okay, now we take this into the garage, we're going to cut these tails off, and then we can reinstall the radiator. And with my fan shroud, it's completely done, and I have added some weather stripping on the sides to help air pull through the radiator and not from the sides of the radiator. AC compressor and the condenser are going to take a little while longer. So while I've been waiting, I decided to take care of some of the side quests that I've had sitting around on the shelf for a while. First one being, I wanted to add this filter for my power steering return line. Do you need it? No. But is it going to hurt? Also no. Might it help my rack last a little bit longer? Maybe. And considering it took just a few minutes, it only cost a few bucks. There it is. It's on there. Another side quest that I'm very happy to have taken up was to refactor the little distribution block that I was using to send power down to the starter. It's not a good idea to use stereo equipment for car starting equipment. It's not rated for that type of load. So I replaced it with a bus bar. And so not only did I replace it with a bus bar, but I also upgraded the power wire and wrapped everything nice and neat and got it all sealed up really, really well. I also repainted the battery tray because there was some exposed metal there, and I decided to go with matte black because, well, it's a battery tray. It doesn't need to be Suzuka blue. Another side quest that I'm kind of breaking my brain on is what to do about this intake tube. You see, when this line is connected, it gets awfully close to the intake tube, and in fact may make contact, especially if it wiggles around. I need some kind of bracket here somewhere that's going to hold this thing up. And I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do about that. I may do like a bent steel if I can get down to that bolt here. I really can't make that decision until this AC line is where it needs to be, because that's more important. I can figure it out from there once that's in. So I really can't do anything about this yet until I get the compressor back. The last of the side quests that I took up was the oil catch can, and of course I've only got one right now. The other one is on order, and now that I've placed the one, I think I'm going to be able to fit the other one right here. It's going to come a little bit close to the VIN, but the VIN is literally just in the sheet metal. It's not riveted to a plate or anything, so as long as I'm not drilling through the VIN, I should be okay. Well, it's been a while since we last checked in, so hopefully I can remember all of the things that I did. I got the cowl back together. I've got the windshield wiper thingies put back on. That all works now. The little grill pieces on. All of that's done. I've also installed a second catch can. Now, a lot of people have been saying that you don't need a second catch can, and well, we're going to either prove or disprove that because we have one. And so the benefit to this is that under high rev situations, when you're revving to the moon, you may get some additional oil coming through this side of the system, which would send oil vapors into your intake through here, and that, I believe, may have contributed to the gumming up of my throttle body. I could be wrong, but we're going to test that with about probably 10,000 miles of driving. If I see anything at all at the bottom of that can, then it's probably going to stay. If I see nothing at all at the bottom of that can, well, I've got 10 other cars that I can put this on, so it's still not a waste. So whether or not you agree or disagree, the fact remains that we're going to take a scientific approach to this, and if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. We learned something, and we can move on, and I can continue to do cool stuff. What else have I done? I have replaced the hood lever because I broke both sides of this thing, both inside the car and out here. And that was just from having it hooked up to the whole assembly and trying to move the whole assembly around. That broke, and so I had to replace it. That really sucked. What you see here is a complete set of lines from a parts car. A huge thank you to Blue Motors for giving me a really great price on all of these parts. I've, at this point, probably bought about half of the car that he's parting out. So check out Blue Motors in Sun Valley. They are no nonsense. They won't rip you off. Not a sponsor. I pay for everything that I get from him. This is just me showing my gratitude. All right, so we have really all of the fittings are in good shape. Nothing is crushed and mangled like I did to mine. So we can use all of these. Really the only issue that I see here is the high side copper line has just kind of gone full Statue of Liberty here. So we're going to have to clean that up. We're going to clean all of this up, both aesthetically and on the inside with our flush solvent. We have also got the compressor back from the rebuilders, Angie and Sally at US AC Compressor in Van Nuys. And I am so excited to have working air conditioning in my car again. Of course, this looks great. It is pre-filled with 3 ounces of PAG 46. Again, I pay for all this stuff. This is not a YouTube discount. I am just showing my gratitude for the quality work and all of the knowledge and experience that they have shared with me over the past few months. I am really grateful for all of that and really grateful for their friendship. Thank you, Angie and Sally at US AC Compressor. Now the need for cleanliness cannot be overstated here, and as you can see, it's not perfectly clean, but I've got clean hands and I've wiped down the bottle, I've got clean measuring spoons and a clean party cup. So we can get started on this. So we're going to start with the compressor, which is a 1/4 cup. The spoon that I have is an 1/8 cup, so just 2 of these is going to be a 1/4 cup. We got 1, 2. And as you can see, some of the pag oil actually sticks to the spoon. We're also going to lose some when we pull vacuum. So I'm going to add literally a few drops to compensate for that lost volume. And that should be enough. Now to fill this thing, I've got this adorable little funnel that we're going to stick right in here. I'm going to go ahead and move my alternator charge cable out of the way. If you have a battery hooked up to this, you want to make sure that the battery is unhooked because this thing is directly connected to the battery. It will zap you. So I found a longer funnel. What I'm going to do is use this longer funnel to pour into the tiny funnel. I might have to add just a couple of more drops to this, but we're pretty good. See, there's just a little bit left at the cup. So we're going to add just 2-3 more drops. So now we need to measure out the rest of our system. We've already filled for the evaporator, and now we've filled for the compressor. So we need to add fluid for the condenser, the hoses, and the dryer. And that's 2 teaspoons each, so a total of 6 teaspoons. So I put the conversion valves on here just to make for a little bit bigger target, but as you can see, it's still pretty slim. So I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but I think it's going to work better than it did on the other side. Now that the system has oil in it, it's closed up. Before we put the belts on, I want to rotate this thing by hand. Good luck. Jesus, getting your hand in there is just, yeah, there we go. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn it a lot, many, many times. That way I can make sure that I turned it enough times. It's nice and smooth now. Now we're going to turn it the other direction and see if it continues to be nice and smooth. Yeah, I think we've turned it enough times. So we've got the system closed up, we've added oil, and I've turned the compressor enough times that it feels nice and smooth. Before we move forward with the AC project, since I need to drive this car tomorrow, I really need to finish putting it back together, like completely back together. That includes the radiator, the belts, the bumper, all of the little brackets and stuff that hold everything together. I need to get all of this together so that I can actually drive it, regardless of whether or not it finished the AC project. So I'm not going to bore you with a time lapse. We've seen enough of that in this video. I'm just going to skip ahead. You've seen me put this car back together 3 or 4 times by now. So I'll see you in a little bit. Well, I hooked up the manifold gauge set. I didn't want to record while the compressor was charging because the compressor uses the same power source as the lights. So it's either one or the other. So let's go ahead and open. We're going to do a pressure check of this system. We're going to put some pressure in on both sides. It's only like 30 psi, nothing to write home about, but we're going to put some pressure in, and then we're going to see if it holds. Really basic test, and since this has been open to atmosphere for 4 weeks now, it's not going to do any harm. Air is just coming rushing out of this fitting right here, and as you can see, I didn't tighten it. That's why you want to do a test like this before you start throwing in refrigerant, because all I did was waste air. I didn't waste refrigerant. So let's tighten that, and I'll check back in with you in a second. I'm hearing hissing, but is that coming from the system or is that coming from the hose? Let's close this off and find out. Oh, it's coming from over here. Okay, so the dryer is now not correctly hooked up. So I get to fight that. I'll check in with you once I'm done fighting that. Yeah, it looks like I just forgot to tighten that all together. Let's try again. Open. Open. We'll check in on this in a minute. If this is good, we're going to start pulling a deep vacuum. And while I pull a deep vacuum, I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of this car back together, because it's actually more important for me to be able to drive this car tomorrow than for it is to have air conditioning. So whatever the result of the air conditioning is, if we can drive the car, it's a success. It sounds like a Mongolian throat singer. All right, we are ready to start charging the AC. The book calls for you to start by putting, well, according to the book, it's 10.5 ounces into the high side with the car off. Now, since we're doing R134, not R12, we're going to put about 8 ounces in. If we have our measurement, our weight at 18.36, that is the weight of the refrigerant that's in a bottle, which is about 12 ounces. That is including the weight of the bottle, the weight of the valve, and the weight of the hose. So we need to put 8 ounces into the car, into the high side, which means we're going to run this down to 10.36 ounces or 10.25, somewhere around there. And we're going to do that only in the high side. We're leaving the low side closed, and it's closed on both sides. And then we shut it off. We close the high side, and we leave the high side closed for good after that. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. When you're charging AC systems, always wear gloves and safety goggles, because this could really mess up your day. And by that, I mean it could blind you. So we're going to open our bottle, and then we have to purge the line. Let's open our high side. $15.2. All right, once the high side is full, I will check back in with you. So unfortunately, I was unable to get the AC system to charge. So I had to put the car back together to prepare for the show at the Peterson Automotive Museum the very next day. So I went through the electrical diagnostics that I had done in my last video on this car, and I discovered that the relay still had a lot of resistance between the relay and the compressor. And according to the book, that means that you need to look at your thermal protector. Well, the thermal protector was good. It's a continuity check, and it had continuity, and the compressor was also rebuilt. We know it's good. So the book says from there, really doesn't give much guidance. It says replace the compressor clutch. And the compressor clutch is good because it was rebuilt. So that leads me to believe maybe there might be an electrical gremlin that is not accounted for in the book. The next thing I want to do here is test the stator coil resistance. It's supposed to be 3.0 plus or minus 0.03 ohms of resistance at 68 degrees. And my God, I wish it were 68 degrees, because I would not hate this nearly as much as I hate this right now. It's about 104 degrees. But nonetheless, we're going to pull the stator coil plug, which is this bullet connector right here. And we got to test it against, I guess, the side of the compressor to see what our ohms are. 4.0. This kinda is testing out of spec. That is actually consistent with the out of spec test that we had on our relay over there. That also might explain why the thermal protector tests are passing. If this is out of spec, oh man, the stator's bad, which means the compressor has to come out. Well, the bad news is this car isn't going to have AC. The good news is that, well, at least we have a smoking gun. We have something to go off of to say that maybe this compressor didn't get everything it needed. I don't want to jump to conclusions. I'm going to call a shop, and we're going to find out together what went wrong. So we have fully tested this thing down at the shop on their bench, and it works. Everything is just fine. The stator works correctly. The thermal protector works correctly. There is nothing at all wrong with this compressor, and we have confirmed that, which means we're going to put this thing back on the car and we're going to try to charge the AC again. And if it doesn't take a charge, if it doesn't kick on when I put about 4 ounces from the can in there, that means that there is a problem with my car. The good news to confirming that the compressor is good is that I can fix it. There's nothing here that we can't fix. So we're going to fix it. The AC compressor is installed, car is back together. I've also refilled the radiator and bled everything. In addition to that, I have pulled vacuum for an hour, so we are ready to begin charging. I gotta say, this thing went back together really quickly. Pulling the radiator was a really good idea because I got access to everything I needed. I didn't even need to drop the alternator or the power steering. I didn't even need to loosen the power steering. I was trying to depin the red wire from the harness, and of course it just ripped itself out of the connector. It's not a big deal, it's just really annoying. I was able to put new ends on the wires, and we're just going to connect it directly into the relay. Once I know that this works, once I've figured out a solution to this thing, I'm just going to throw the relay into the engine compartment. No, I'm going to get a new connector, and we'll be able to just pop those right into the new connector and then into this relay. Okay, well, the bad news is that with the new wire, the resistance is exactly the same. It's at about 4.0 ohms of resistance, which is out of spec. But interestingly enough, if I jump this straight to my 12-volt source, which you see over there is my unprotected fuse, it's going to turn on. Let me show you that real quick because I think I may be onto something. Okay, so as you can see, it's not turning. Let me just very briefly shove some power straight into it. See, it turned. So what do we do with this information? First, I want to see if the pressure switch has continuity. If it does, then we should be getting a signal out to the car. The next thing I want to do is, when the system is on, check to see if this relay works. I can bench test both of these relays. I believe I did, but we're going to test them one more time. And then after that, we're just going to work up the system until we find out why this isn't sending enough power to activate the compressor. I've taken apart the inside of the car again, and as you can see, I've got some test wires just kind of hanging out there. And that was because I wanted to confirm whether or not I was getting enough signal to activate the relays. And it seems I'm not. So even though we have continuity at the trigger wires, which is this one and one of the other ones in the other harness, even though I'm getting continuity there, it's apparently not enough to activate the relay. So I have been at this for hours, and I think I've narrowed it down to the compressor control module. Now there's two reasons for that. For one, I'm getting all kinds of anomalous readings on the compressor control module. I am getting continuity everywhere in the book that you're supposed to get continuity from. However, for some reason, I'm just not getting enough juice from the compressor control module to fire up these relays. Even though I am in fact getting a signal, I've confirmed that. I've also confirmed that the compressor works. We've confirmed that twice by taking it off and taking it back down to the shop. The other reason I think it may be the compressor control module is because, well, it's been on fire a little bit. Only a little bit, but this is something that fails. It's not the most common thing in the world, but it does happen. So I thought maybe I should just get another compressor control module. But here's the problem with that. It's way overpriced. Now, I get it. We all want to be millionaires, and I support that. I think everyone should work hard, should build something, create a product, put something out there in the world, and use their talents to be profitable. Here's the thing though, that compressor control module takes 30 seconds to remove. You're not fooling anyone, you're not being creative, you're not doing anything great for the world, you're just ripping people off. That should not cost more than $50. And I don't care what you say about supply and demand. You're ripping people off. Look, this is a small community of people. There are not a lot of people that like Preludes. There's more than ever, but these cars are also disappearing. And if all you're out there to do is to get yours and fuck everybody else, then these cars are going to go extinct and there will be no one to help you when you need it. So after doing some asking around, I made contact with David from Prelude Engineering, and he sent me a bypass system. Let's go take a look at that. This is everything that came in the box from Prelude Engineering for the bypass system. Not that. That is from my car. It's only here because, well, this clip is really strong and I don't want to break the relay. We have here the little connector that replaces the compressor control module. So you have the harness that goes into the compressor control module. It goes into this instead. And this is really a simple thing. We have over here, this is the relay bypass. So you have your A relay, which is the first one, and then the B relay goes out to the compressor. And then in the middle of them, you have one of your relays. You just toss the other one in your toolbox or whatever and keep it off to the side. These things, well, people are ripping other people off for these things also. So if you want to be a Prelude millionaire, go ahead and sell relays for $900,000. But I digress. So this is really easy to do, and the best part about this is reversible. You don't need to cut a single wire in your car, and if for whatever reason you do stumble upon a compressor control module that works, that doesn't cost you a testicle, then you can put this back together the way it was from the factory. We've also got a little sticker. This is definitely going on to my car before Japanese Classic Car Show because David actually sent me something a little bit extra that we're going to take a look at later. This is something really cool, not related to air conditioning, that he sent me, and we're going to take a look at that in just a little bit. We've also got here, looks like a keychain. This is also very cool, and I don't know if this is something he sends out with all of his products or if he just sent it to me because he knows I have a YouTube channel. But either way, thank you very much, David. This is very, very cool, very creative solution that you've done for this. And full disclosure, I paid for this. This is not YouTube discount stuff. This is YouTube discount, but this is not. So to be perfectly honest here, it's a little spendy considering how simple this is. I mean, you really, in all honesty, could have just looked at his pictures and stolen this design and done it myself for free, but that's not the point. This is David's creativity that went into this. He put out a product and he put work into it, not just for the B20 in the 3rd gen Prelude, but also for H22 and other applications as well. He did the harnesses and the how-tos for all of these products, and he really deserves the recognition for it. He deserves my money. So I'm happy to pay for it. So let's put this in the car and see if it works, because if it doesn't work, I may just set my car on fire for a 3rd time. So the front harness is really easy. You've got this little bolt down here. You've seen it. We got our relays up front. Now, since my relays were, well, my harness was ripped out when I was trying to diagnose it, I'm just going to connect the A relay to the corresponding A relay. And the B relay, the important thing to know about A and B, it's labeled B because B goes out to the red wire that goes to your compressor. So even though I've got the entire B relay here, it's not going to do anything. All it is going to do is send the signal out to the compressor. So we're going to go ahead and connect that there. And since I still need to do a little bit of cleanup here, I'm just going to leave it like that. And if it works, then we're going to do everything we need to do to clean it up. Let's go inside the car and I'll show you just how easy it is to connect it from the inside. In order to get to the compressor control module, you do have to take out the glove box, and that's pretty easy. I've already removed it because I had to put my car back together to drive it, and I wanted to get the glove box back installed. So we've got it just hanging down here. But in order to remove the glove box, you've got 3 screws here, here, and then another one here for this bottom trim piece. And then the glove box is just held on from there with by the hinges right underneath here. You can see where this little cutout here is. There's a screw there and a screw on the other side, and then the glove box comes out, and the compressor control module is off to the right side over here. So it connects to this harness, and then with David's bypass, you just connect it here. So what this does is this connects the relays with the engine ECU idle up signal so that the car behaves the way it's supposed to and the signal gets out to the relay. So let's turn the car on and see if turning on AC activates the compressor. I already have about 4 ounces in the system from forcing power into the compressor to turn it on to give it just enough charge to, work if it's going to work. So let's turn it on. We got the fan on, and we're going to turn on the AC. Now, you might not have heard it, but I certainly did. We're going to go over here, and we're going to see the compressor spinning away. This is awesome. So the next thing we need to do is charge this thing. Now, you've already seen me charge the 134A system in the Prelude. This is going to be the same thing in this car. So if you want to watch me do that, go ahead and watch this other video because I've got a lot more technical info on the 134A conversion specifically. This video turned out to be diagnostics of a worst case scenario. So we fixed it. Let's get this thing charged up so that I can have air conditioning in my Prelude for the first time in 15 years. The real problem here is I don't know how much volume exactly I have in the system, and that's because I have so many problems with these stupid bottles. So right now, our gauges actually look okay at about 43, 44, and 175 on the high. That's actually should be okay for this car, and it most definitely blows cold on the inside. The only thing that makes me nervous is that I think there's only about 22 ounces into the system, but it sure doesn't feel like it. It sure is blowing pretty nice. Now, I don't know if I get this dumb thing to work, but we're in the 50s, 40s. I have to get a real thermometer and try this out because this feels pretty cold and our pressures look pretty good. I just don't think I have as much volume in there that I should. Worst case scenario, I can take it down to the shop and we'll know for sure. But it feels really good in here, you guys. It feels really good. So I got everything cleaned up. The relays are back where they belong. Everything's bolted in, taped in, brackets are in, and this car is as ready as it can be for the show this weekend. I do have to do a little bit of cleanup, but I'm going to worry about that later. I want to get the interior cleaned up, the exterior cleaned up, and then I'll wipe down as much as I can underneath the hood. But before we do that, I want to take a look at the other thing that David sent me from Prelude Engineering. We have here a product that is not available to the public yet. This is a cover that goes over the hole in the mirror when you remove the license plate alarm. Let's go in the car and I'll show you how to install this and what it looks like when it's done, and I'll give you some final thoughts. So if you're thinking of buying something like this, it's likely because your cover has broken. I did buy a replacement cover. This is available on eBay. I don't know who makes it, but I know that they make a lot of them. And it was working for a while, but this plastic is so brittle that it broke too. So I was driving around with my mom. She was in town from Texas, and suddenly car parts just start raining down on us. It was pretty embarrassing. But that's the nature of this thing. The reason why you're looking to cover up this hole is because that piece broke, and likely this stupid seatbelt alarm broke. And if you're like me, you hate that noise to begin with, so you've probably already disabled the alarm. Let's take this thing out so that we can cover up this hole. So this piece of crap is going to leave my car probably never to return. and it's going to be replaced with this. Before I put it in, I want to kind of give you a close-up of it. This is a 3D printed part, so it comes naturally with the 3D print patterns on this. If that bothers you, you could always smooth this out and then spray it with trim black. I might do that eventually, but for now, we're going to put it in as is so that I could show you just how it comes from the creator of this thing. So the mirror has these little spots that jut out, and you just kind of slip this thing over the 3 holes. It's going to be a little bit of a tight fit, at least it is for me, but it does get on there and it sits there pretty snugly. Once you get that on there, you can start threading in screws. And the idea here is that you're covering up this ugly ass hole. Ugly ass hole, or ugly asshole. Let's not get into semantics. Lastly, we have the cover that goes over the mirror. Oops, I dropped it. This looks like it just snaps right onto the sides. Actually, it does, because we've got these little tabs on our mirror that this should fit perfectly in. Get in there. Get in there. There you go. That is a tight fit, but this looks so good. Let me pick up the camera and I'll show you. So full disclosure, I did not pay for this. This is something that David gave me in addition to the AC bypass, which is still hanging down there. That said, if I saw someone was selling this, I would totally buy it. This is a really great solution to this stupid seatbelt alarm that I really hate. I may paint it in a future video, but for now, I'm going to leave it as is. And this is just one more detail that's going to make my car unique at the Japanese Classic Car Show. So thank you so much, David, for giving me the opportunity to demo one of your up-and-coming products. I'm very grateful for that. So much so that I have already put your sticker on the side of my car. Now, there's one last thing we need to do since we did all of this work to get the air conditioning working. That is obviously to drive this. Well, we've been driving around for about 5-10 minutes now with the air conditioning on. And admittedly, it's not that hot outside right now because we are actually rolling into fall. This took about 3 months to get done because of all of the things that were wrong with this system. And being that this is a car that I'm going to have forever, I wanted to go through it slowly, I wanted to go through it carefully, and I wanted to get everything done the right way. This is the first time since about 2006 that I've had air conditioning in the car. It's 2024 today, which means it's been over 15 years, not quite 20. And it's just such a great feeling to know that I fixed it. I fixed something that seemed impossible, and I did it. And getting this air conditioning working really makes me feel like I can do anything. And this really does accomplish what I did in my other project car. If you remember, when I fixed the air conditioning in that car, I was driving around saying, man, this sure feels nice. I sure wish I had that experience in my Prelude. And now I have it in my Prelude. And this is just the coolest damn thing ever. Literally cool. We're at 44 degrees right now with my little thermometer here. I am going to take this into the shop because, like I said, I think I could stand to have more volume of refrigerant in the system, but I can't know that given what we've been through trying to fill this car. They're going to be able to tell for sure, and we're probably going to evacuate and recharge it to know exactly how much we have in here and to make sure that we get it right. But that said, this car is running great. One of the things that you're supposed to look out for when you're doing air conditioning is the car is not supposed to run differently when it's off versus when it's on. There is no difference when I turn this air conditioning on. I don't feel the car drag. It doesn't suddenly lose power. I'm sure on a dyno it's going to lose a couple of horsepower, but who cares about that? It feels awesome. I'm really happy with this progress. I mean, you can tell I'm happy. I cannot stop smiling. This is such a great experience. So let's wrap this up. This video has been a long one. It was a long journey. It was even longer for me. There's a lot of things that I did not include in this video because they turned out to be dead ends. So if you have any questions about Prelude air conditioning, I might be able to help because I've been down pretty much every rabbit hole you can go down with this car. You saw I had to replace the lines, I had to rebuild the compressor, I had to fix the wiring, I had to eventually replace the compressor control module. I went through the switch assemblies, I've been through wiring diagrams. I've been through a lot. So if you have questions on air conditioning for the Honda Prelude, I might be able to help. If you don't have any questions, well, if you like what you see, like, share, subscribe, and comment. And if you don't like what you see, maybe you're a certified AC tech and you're going to tell me that I did everything wrong, or that I should have not used a rotary vane compressor. That was a hilarious one. Leave a comment anyway because I want to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.